Hello and welcome to CrossTalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter Lavelle. The Epstein-Maxwell saga is one of the most sensational stories of our time. However, media coverage appears to be limited to lurid details and political overtones. The single biggest question that needs to be answered is how all of this could have happened. Where was law enforcement? And will justice be finally served? To discuss this and more, I'm joined by my guest, Alex Cristoforo in Athens. He is the director of the Duran.com. And in Milwaukee, we have Jennifer DeMaster. She is a federal law and compliance attorney. All right, CrossTalk rules in effect. That means you can jump in anytime you want, and I always appreciate it. Okay, let's go to Jennifer in Milwaukee. The saga continues on. We're getting more and more documents that are being released. And the thing that there's a real striking dichotomy in my mind in all of this is that a lot of these facts have been known for a very long time, that we've had allegations made for a very long time. There was a trial. Epstein did stand trial and was convicted of charges. And then we have the media coverage of it. And it's, Prince Andrew, it's Bill Clinton, depending on what side of the aisle, it was Donald Trump. It seems to me there's so much focus on the lurid details, which I think is a sad comment in our culture, and looking for political advantage instead of looking at really what has happened, the failures of law enforcement for decades. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Decades. What you've raised is, I think, the crux of our time right now. And I do think that this case is bringing it to light. So a couple things to say here with respect to what you have now truthfully and accurately stated, but a couple things to state. One is the fact that these are things, as you said, that we have known for a long time, that the public has known, but somehow we don't know how we've known it. We've just known these things are out there, but we don't believe they're actually factual enough to be bringing up in major conversations. And that's because of mainstream media coverage, or I should say lack thereof, especially in the United States here. So we've seen this complete, shush on the level of that. We're not sure what to believe. And now as this is coming out, they're almost forced to have to cover it, but even still, they're not covering it the way they should. They're not covering what an important story this is. Now, yes, it has been used for political advantages. My goodness, the things that we have known are some of the ties between certain, not only politicians, but Hollywood celebrities. And of course, as we know, there are many Hollywood celebrities that have come out being far more political than they probably should be. But that's the connection there. So what's come out in this recent document dump, again, is a non-prosecution agreement. Of course, it was drafted by Alan Dershowitz, who himself is implicated in some of the deposition statements of the victims. And another thing that came out in this, with a lot of media coverage immediately, of course, saying Trump knew the guy, Trump hung out with the guy, Trump's guilty too, and just kind of focusing on that. One of the statements in the depositions very clearly says that Trump was never seen by the victims at any events or on Epstein Island. So again, we are politicizing this, but I think one thing that Attorney General Bill Barr did when he was testifying before the House committee the other day was try to distinguish himself from being a political actor and being somebody that cared about the rule of law. Obviously, we saw that a lot of congressmen and women did not want to hear that or talk about the rule of law, especially when it might not help them politically. But I think we do at least have an attorney general that's going to care a little bit more about the rule of law, especially getting to the bottom of this.
Yeah, Alex, the fact that it's being so politicized, and I do want to talk about Trump's comments later in the program, but it seems to me that, is this intentional? Is this kind of a slow burn to constantly turn our attention away? Because particularly there's this American thing with the royals in the UK, Prince Andrew and all of this, okay? And that's all nice and fine. I don't really care because it's just very titillating. But, it seems to me that as this trial, because it's set for next summer, and I want to go back to Jennifer on this. I mean, more and more people potentially could be coming out, and we have 6 charges right now, 4 of trafficking and 2 of perjury. But if more and more alleged victims come forward, we're going to have a lot more to chew on here. But it seems to me, no, it's Trump, it's Clinton, it's Prince Andrews, and not to focus on the victims. And that's where it should be. Go ahead, Alex.
Well, yeah, I mean, we should be focusing on the victims, and it was the victim testimony that we're reading here. But, Peter, I mean, all the mainstream media was reporting on Clinton. or Dershowitz or Prince Andrew, or some of the other names that may come out, maybe some Hollywood names, or maybe some very powerful, business people. Okay, fine. Bill Clinton, 26 times he was on that plane. None of this is a surprise given Bill Clinton's history. It doesn't shock me, the fact that Bill Clinton would be on Epstein's island. That doesn't shock me. Does it make for interesting news? Okay, it's an interesting revelation in the history of this former U.S. president, but it shouldn't shock anyone, nor should it shock anyone if you find out some Hollywood celebrities were on this island either. We're not talking about people that we should be looking up to, Hollywood and Bill Clinton. But Peter, there is one name and there's one organization that we should all take a look at, and it's an organization and a name that no one in the mainstream media is reporting on, and that is the FBI, the FBI, and Robert Mueller. Robert Mueller's FBI. The FBI of Bill Clinton, the FBI of George W. Bush, the FBI of Barack Obama, both Democrat and Republican. This is not about politics. This is the FBI that had the Prince Andrew picture. They had it. This is the FBI that did not, for some reason, would not give over evidence to the victims so that they could prosecute Epstein. And I may get the year wrong. I believe that was 2015. I can be corrected if that year is not correct. But they had the evidence. They wouldn't cooperate with the victims. We need to ask the question now, and I think you know where I'm going with this. Was the FBI protecting Epstein? Was Epstein working for the FBI? I don't know. I'm giving opinions. I'm giving, information from what I read.
You're asking a very valid question. Look at Carter Page. I mean, he was constantly being asked who he was working for, and he actually had a relationship with the CIA, but he wasn't allowed to say it. Okay.
And can I just say, Alex Acosta? I remember when they asked him a question, way back, why didn't you go after this, or why aren't you going after Epstein? He said something along the lines of, I was told not to because this guy is intelligence or is being protected by intelligence, something like that. I forgot the exact quote, but there you have it. Was the FBI using Epstein in order to get salacious details about powerful people in order to leverage that information? We have to ask these questions. And the other question I have to ask is, why Robert Mueller? Robert Mueller, there he is again, the same guy that was going after Trump during the Russiagate hoax. There he is again, and there he is, his FBI pressing the victims to try and get information or try to connect Trump to Epstein. I mean, they were trying so hard to connect Trump to Epstein. What is going on here?
What is going on here? Jennifer, the two perjury charges really kind of interest me because those are slam dunks. You said this at one time, now you're saying that now. That's an easy one. And that's easily provable, okay? Because you don't need any witnesses. It's your own words being used against you here. Again, last time we talked about it, I'm still troubled by the charges themselves because it seems to wipe away or just turn away from a mountain of other things. As you said in your first answer, we kind of know a lot of these things here. Okay, and the Justice Department is focusing on very, very specific things because I get the impression is that they want to penalize. They want to see a conviction here because a conviction is very important for them because then we'll say we did something. But going back to what Alex said, I mean, it looks like they haven't been doing a lot for a very long time. Seems to be very convenient. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Exactly nothing. And you know what? Alex was dead on point there. I would even take it one step further because yes, if this was just Jeffrey Epstein's case and if this was just about Epstein, maybe that would be one thing we'd talk about, the FBI or their use of intelligence. This is Maxwell. This is somebody who was a UK citizen, a British citizen. She lived in Europe. She had residences in Europe and of course now these sudden residences in the US, but she has been, she's a foreign national. She was a foreign national, or she was at least dual citizenship. This is a woman, though, that has so many ties overseas, which implicates the CIA. So if Alex Acosta has come out and others start to come out that Epstein had connections to intelligence, that again implicates the CIA, who has now also been implicated, as we've seen playing out now in Durham's investigation and a lot of other things that, yes, the FBI was at the front and center, but it almost makes one wonder, is the FBI sort of the silencing wing or the prosecution wing of the CIA operations? All right, silence this. This is our guy, or this might be our guy, but you can go after him. We're just going to use him, or we already used him anyways. I mean, these are a lot of questions that we have yet to be answered. But this is that is one of the most important things.
Well, the interesting thing is, Alex, Epstein is dead, so you can't convict a dead guy. So you have Maxwell. So it's kind, not to absolve her of any kind of criminality. And some of the things we have learned through documents, it's this. You don't have words for this kind of behavior. But I mean, it seems to me that she's going to the FBI is going to be able to say we've taken care of this because we got a conviction on a perjury charge. Okay. The slate is clean. Let's move on. That's not satisfactory in my mind. Go ahead, Alex.
No, it's not satisfactory at all. What happened to Epstein is not satisfactory. So, I mean, they have to get to the bottom of this, Peter. They have to get to the bottom of this. Robert Mueller needs to be questioned. The FBI works for the DOJ. That's Barr's DOJ. That's AG Barr's DOJ. He needs to get to the bottom of this. And Robert Mueller definitely has some answers. I mean, this is crystal clear now at this point. Robert Mueller has some answers as to what was going on with Epstein and what was going on with Ghislaine Maxwell. We need to get to the bottom of this. That's what I got from everything that I read.
Okay, Alex, but you saw him present his findings to Congress, one of the most pathetic presentations in the history of media and in the Congress itself. Do you have confidence if you were to ask him a question, would he, be of sound mind to be able to answer it? I mean, it seems to be a trend here. It's like Biden, it's Mueller, and then Christopher Wray, which is a completely useless person. What does he do? Okay. How is he earning his wage as head of the FBI? Okay. I mean, it seems to me that all of these individuals are silent. Okay. And it's convenient that they're silent.
That's the problem. That is the problem, is they're silent when it's convenient for them. But now we have these testimonies, we have the documents in front of us, and we know that they were hiding information. They were hiding information that could have saved many, many victims, a lot of grief, a lot of pain, a lot of agony, and they weren't turning over that information. I have to ask myself why, and it wasn't a Republican thing or a Democrat thing. This spanned 3 presidencies, 3, both Republican and Democrat. They have the answers. They have them. The U.S. government has the answers.
Okay, Jennifer, real quick before we go to the break. Go ahead, 30 seconds.
Absolutely. Going back to to Alex's point here. This is a Republican and a Democrat thing. There have been so many convictions, so many charges, and so many indictments for Republicans and Democrats. And so this is not a political thing. It shouldn't be used as a political thing. This is about the victims.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad you said that, because that's what makes us different from other media, because I'm not looking for a political angle here. I'm trying to understand how the FBI could let this happen or cover it up. I don't know if that's the right word right now. We need to know more, but this is huge. And in these document dumps, slowly but surely, are telling us they didn't do their job. All right, I'm going to jump in here. We're going to go to a short break, and after that short break, we'll continue our discussion on the Epstein-Maxwell saga. Stay with us. Welcome back to CrossTalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter Lavelle. To remind you, we're discussing the Epstein-Maxwell saga. Okay, let's go back to Alex in Athens. The first time you were on CrossTalk and we talked about this story, you asked the most fundamental question, and it still remains to be answered. Where did the money come from? And you know something about money. It's something you can track, okay? Because they can track any of your financial endeavors whatsoever. It's very, very easy to do it legally or illegally, but you just simply can't move money around without somebody noticing it here. I don't know how much Maxwell has. Some people have said like $20 million, houses all over the world. First of all, where did she get her money? I mean, I've never heard, was she ever gainfully employed? I don't know anything about that, but extremely wealthy. And of course, we have no idea how Epstein made his money, and his wealth is estimated, at something like $700 million or something like that. So, I mean, again, where's the FBI and where are the tools of the state? I mean, people can lie, you can perjure yourself, but money is money, and it's something you can find out where it goes. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, where is the money? You know, another good question would be, Peter, where is the 500, 600 million of Epstein's? Where did that go? Where did that go? The FBI knows. Intelligence knows. They know where the money is. They know where it is. Ghislaine Maxwell said that she did not have any communication with Epstein for 10 years. And Jennifer can elaborate on this. We get documents which show she was emailing Epstein in 2015. Her case, I'm not a lawyer, but I would imagine her case is dead, just blown apart. I didn't know Epstein, or I stopped communicating with him. Was she looking after Epstein's money, or was her money Epstein's money? Let's not forget, Maxwell comes. Her history is very interesting and very colorful.
You don't know what happened to her father's money.
The pension funds, exactly. Her father's money, we don't know where it is either.
You know, Jennifer, again, this is what really bothers me is that, okay, fine, perjury, you should be punished for perjury. Absolutely. I wish members of the former administration and members of Congress would live up to that. Okay. But that's a different topic for a different program here. But again, if you want to make a really solid case, then follow the money. And on top of it, from what we know that has been put into the public square, the activities of Epstein and Maxwell, they couldn't have done it alone. They weren't flying the planes, okay? They weren't aircraft controllers, okay? There were a lot of people around in this operation here. Why are we going to learn about that? Again, this is knowable things, okay? If you have a list of flights, the times, from what airport to what airport, who was working in the airports? What did they see? Are we going to hear anything about that? Or is it, perjury and then this is done? Go ahead, Jennifer.
Now, this is my opinion. I'm going to say I haven't read anything on this, but the facts do seem to line it up. First of all, there are a lot of names, even in the disclosures that have come out, that are still redacted. So as Alex rightly stated, I mean, these are names that none of us were really surprised by, the ones that were released. Either we knew about them or we didn't really care about them. But there are still names within that deposition that are redacted. There is a reason for that. If those names are redacted, that means there is an ongoing investigation into those redacted names, and those people are not suicided at this point. And so there is something else still going on. We still have the Durham investigation. We have multiple investigations still going on. What I'm going to say right here, and again, this is an opinion just based on evidence, what I know from legal precedent or the kind of case you're trying to build, and I'm going to try to refrain from making any kind of conclusions. But if you follow, and right now, you know what, I am going to give credit not only to programs like this one, to other programs that are trying to report on this and connect the dots. I'm also going to give credit to a lot of certain citizen journalists on social media that are taking DOJ indictments and certain things, and they're putting the pieces, because the public, and that is all around the world, people are concerned about this. The public relies on the media to piece together legal documents, to piece together indictments. So what's this department doing? How might it affect this department? So there have been a lot of money laundering charges, a lot of money laundering indictments, a lot of international money laundering, bribery, RICO schemes, some of these indictments, and we're not sure yet, but I do believe that a lot of those are going to start to be pieced together. You brought up, where does the money go? Well, that would then go into money laundering. It's not just going to go into person B's bank account after they pay for, whatever it is that they want. It's going to be transferred through multiple financial institutions, shell companies and organizations. And so there would have to be massive RICO investigations, money laundering schemes that cross international borders. And I believe that's what's happening. If you look at some citizen journalists on social media have had to be the ones taking the mantle, and shows like this that are trying to piece together what we've seen. But there are a number of those that are connecting to some of the same names that we've seen. So I believe that there is something that is being built that might even go beyond just the Maxwell case. Yes, perjury is not what we want to see. We don't want Maxwell on perjury. Nobody cares. But I do believe there is a case that is being built that is going to be far beyond Maxwell, because at the end of the day, as we've stated here, and as the public wants to know, we want to know all the names. We want to know where the money was coming from. We want to know who helped them hide it, because the people who helped them hide these kinds of atrocious acts are just as guilty as anybody who facilitated them. So we want to know if governments that were involved, if intelligence was involved, and what happened, and how we can stop this.
An accomplice, absolutely. Okay, if you are knowledgeable of it, you're an accomplice to this, and it's incumbent upon you to act here. Alex, I have to ask you the most difficult question. It's the saddest question here. Is that if we use Acosta's words, I thought he was an intelligence asset. Well, why should we have any confidence in the intelligence community and the FBI to really get down to the truth? Because, you know, we know that this information is there. Jennifer's already pointed out a lot of stuff is redacted still. I mean, it's really important for them to come out and be transparent about this, because there's so many people that talk about this, you know, and there was that woman on NBC. She had built up this story for over years, you know, and then the management wasn't interested in it. You know, this is still another one of those stories where why should we trust the media and why should we trust the authorities? Because at this point, and I will say, in my humble opinion, it's an obvious whitewash. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, especially after what happened to Epstein. I mean, I'll say it again. They need to get this right. They need to get this right, and we need to see some justice here. And I think it's absolutely critical. You know, the U.S. has just undergone 3-4 years of a Russiagate hoax, and it has been proven to be a complete and utter hoax. The whole thing. Once again, you have the same cast of characters in the Russiagate hoax. The same names are popping up, Peter, in this Epstein thing. The same exact names. How many MSNBC and CNN shows did we see? How many Democrats and Republicans did we hear saying Robert Mueller is a man of integrity? If Trump dares to go after Mueller, then we will impeach Trump. He is a man of the highest integrity, Robert Mueller. He was the man that was heading the FBI and covering what was, and Jennifer said it perfectly, an international organization of trafficking young girls, young kids, our daughters, our sons. This was the man, the same man that was trying to get rid of Trump, trying to overthrow the president of the United States, was the same man that was heading the FBI and had all the evidence and all the information about an international child trafficking operation.
You know, Jennifer, I don't know if you saw it. I mean, Alex and I previously talked about Alan Dershowitz's appearance on Tucker Carlson. I don't know if you saw it, but I'm not a psychologist or anything, but he definitely looked worried. He looked very haggard, very tired, and not crisp as he usually is. And I don't always agree with Mr. Dershowitz. But it was a very interesting appearance. I'll just kind of leave it open. Did you see that?
I did see bits and pieces of it, and you don't have to be a psychologist to have seen that. I think the word that came to my mind was desperate, desperate to explain, to exonerate, to explain away. It was troubling to see. Unfortunately, it was not surprising. Again, that's another name that was not surprising. That's another name that people already knew was implicated. We didn't know it was actually implicated in some of the detailed and horrific events that were described by the witnesses. But this is somebody who knows a lot about this. He did not look well. He looked scared. And frankly, he should be. Everybody that was part of that should be. And I believe at this point, we're looking at numbers that we can't even fathom right now. And those are the names that are still redacted.
Jennifer, let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. In your thinking and professional experience, do you think that those in the FBI and the Justice Department that actually want to find the truth, are they looking for someone that's going to turn state evidence and say, all right, I'm going to start naming names? I mean, do you think this is what's really going on? Because they're pushing the trial out for a year. It gives them time to kind of probe and to see who will flip. Because with all of those names redacted, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people wondering if they're on that list and maybe get ahead of the shark, you know, as it were. Your inkling, what's your gut tell you?
So my gut tells me that there are now, I believe there are some good guys there. That's why I've talked about Bill Barr before. I've studied his career. I've studied his trajectory. This is not a political person. This is a man who was ready for retirement, was excited for it, and saw what was going on, knew what was going on, more so than we might even realize, and wanted to reestablish the rule of law. I do believe that there has been massive, massive corruption, not only in the highest echelons of the FBI, but absolutely within the intelligence community. And that doesn't just include the CIA. And I think we're starting to see evidence of that. The distinction, and this is what I'm seeing, because I look for a trajectory of change. We already know, Alex has stated this, you have stated this, we already know how bad it's been for years under the George W. Bush administration, under multiple administrations. I mean, the Republican and Democrat, prior to right now, there has been a culture of leaks. There has been a culture of intelligence assets, of government officials. I mean, not just low-level government officials, FBI or CIA. These are top-level CIA, White House, FBI officials that are leaking things, leaking confidential information to the New York Times, the Washington Post, to all these for political gain, for political purposes. It turns out to be completely fabricated. And what we are seeing now, I'm seeing a trajectory away from a leaking culture. Yes, you don't want anybody to cover things up and to hide things, but when they're covering up the truth in favor of leaking out lies, I have a problem with that. And it's distinct from, no, we're building a much bigger case than anybody can understand. And we're having to now connect international laundering operations, international trafficking, human trafficking, horrific things, crimes against humanity. This takes some time because remember, we have a mainstream media, especially in America, that has already painted the narrative. And so in order to help the public to see this, and there are people that are waking up that actually just want answers. It's not political for them. They do care about the victims.
We're out of time here, but I think for both my guests here and I think for our viewers, we still have to find out what actually happened to Jeffrey Epstein. That would be a good beginning. I want to thank my guests in Athens and in Milwaukee, and I want to thank our viewers for watching us here at RT. See you next time. Remember, CrossTalk rules.